Hello and welcome. I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody's having a fantastic weekend. It is, after all, a beautiful Saturday here.
It's lovely. I was sitting in the sun all morning.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You're, of course, watching Chess24 live. I'm Lawrence Trent. This is Grandmaster Jan Gustafsson, and we are covering a big tournament. Norway Chess. Already round 4, Jan, and we've had quite a story so far, quite a revelation. The boy from New York, is he New York?
I think he was born in Miami, then moved to New York at a young age. If we're talking about Magnus Carlsen. No, sorry. Fabiano Caruana.
Yeah. Out in front, right, on his own. Fantastic story so far, playing some excellent chess. And was a whisker away from beating the world champion with the black pieces in the previous round. Just needed to find one little move, but Magnus, true to his reputation, really managed to save half a point when he was in trouble. That's why he's a champion, because he saves those points. That said, Caruana is still a whole point ahead of Carlsen going into this round, so he's my favourite for the tournament. I said it.
Well, he's a whole point ahead of Carlsen and a whole point ahead of Simon Achtershtein. For me, that's the two other big storylines. Magnus Carlsen did not win a game yet. Looked good in his first 2 games, not so great against Caruana day before yesterday. While Simon Achtershtein, the underdog, rated 150 points lower than pretty much everybody else in the field, is on 50%, 1.5 out of 3. Came close to a win against Sergei Karyakin in his last game, really looking sharp. And of course, for me, personally, the biggest storyline is, last round I got 0 out of 5 with my predictions. Will I get at least one right today? I'm not sure. I made the mistake of betting against Simon Achtershtein.
Yes.
Once again, I predicted he's going to lose today to Vladimir Kramnik. I did predict a draw in Caruana Giri, a draw in Karyakin Grishuk. A Carlsen win. I'm expecting him to win one game at some point. With black against Topalov, we'll see about that. And Levon Aronian, I predicted a win for him with white against our friend Peter Svidler. Aronian lost last round against Grishuk, horrible game. Great game by Grishuk though, but for him it was horrible. But it's been a tough matchup with white for everybody, including Peter Svidler. So that's my predictions. What are yours? What do you think? What's going to happen?
Well, some are similar, some aren't. Caruana Giri, I'm actually going for a Caruana win today. I just feel like he's going to push. And Giri, you know, the last game against Vlad, he played a bit too pretentiously, in my opinion. And so I'm actually going to go for a Caruana win. With what you went for a draw in that one, right?
I did go for a draw. Okay. I wasn't sure about that one, I got to tell you. It was very close for me between white win and draw.
Karyakin Grishuk, I'm going to say is a draw.
Yeah,
that's the same. Achtershtein Kramnik, I'm going to say is a draw.
I disagree, but I've been wrong pretty much every time.
Siemens looking good. Topalov Carlsen, I agree. I think actually Magnus will win that with black today. And Aronian Svidler, I've gone for a white win. So I think we have only 2.
Only one, right? Oh, no, 2.
No, 2. So it's the Achtershtein Kramnik. Now, as is tradition by now, folks, all of you know, Jan has lost every bet to me thus far. And he already treated me to a very lovely Thai, pad Thai, was it? I can't remember exactly.
I think you had the pad Thai.
I had the pad Thai and it was very nice. Would you like to put another one on the line for this round?
It's getting desperate. I gotta stop the bleeding, you know.
But you might win. You might, you know. This is the whole point. This is gambling. This is the essence of gambling. You can win or you can lose.
You know, one more. I'll cut my losses. If I lose this one,
it's over,
no more action for you.
All right, we got action. That's good to hear. Well, the games have kicked off already, Jan, and clearly a lot of our audience. By the way, if you are interested in getting in touch with us, we love to hear from you. That's what we live for. When I go to sleep at night, I think, when am I going to hear next from, you know, whoever it may be? Ian Robinson. Talking about Ian Robinson, where is Ian Robinson?
He hasn't been around this time. Maybe
unbelievable. Maybe he's on holiday.
He must be on holiday. What else would he be doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into Ian Robinson and his special preferences later.
Yeah, absolutely. Hashtag C24 Live, people. Right. We want to hear from you. So people like We got the Sam Thompsons of this world. Where are they? RW, he's been very, very active. And actually, let's go over what we're going to do today. Let's get it out there straight away.
Yeah, you have something planned, right?
We
You
have
seem
a plan.
excited.
We
Tell
have
me.
a great prize for all of you guys at home. Go to hashtag C24 and send us your predictions.
C24 Live.
C24 Live, I beg your pardon. And send us your predictions game by game of what you think is going to happen. The first person to send us their predictions with every result being correct. Now, it's possible that nobody gets all the correct results, in which case we would have to do a rollover until the next round. The first person to get everything correct will win a very special prize. Are we going to reveal that prize, or...?
It's really not that special, so...
It's not that special. It's really...
It's a horrible, horrible prize.
It's a horrible prize, but we want to hear from you. I think some people would like it, actually. What do you
Maybe,
think?
yeah. I think that's a strange thing. Probably half the people would
Would
consider
really-
it a really good prize.
Yeah. Anyway, we will reveal that prize on receipt of many, many responses. So, please send it, hashtag C24 Live, all 5 results and your predictions, por favor.
Let's get into the games.
Go. Where do you want to go first, Gusti?
I always want to start with Magnus Carlsen. I think he deserves that status by now, that we watch him first. He's black against Vasilin Topalov.
Well.
I'm already hating my prediction. I'll tell you why in a second. So
Really?
Carlsen black. And the Nimzo, which he's been playing constantly. 4 knight f3. Not the most popular line, but very much a main line. Was very popular a while back. It's not that popular nowadays because of the move b6, where black has been doing quite alright as far as I can tell. But Carlsen instead chooses to transpose with d5 in this line, which name I never know. Ragozin?
Ragozin. We do see it, Jan, almost every day. I think it's time you sort of booked up on his name, you know?
It's not that I don't know it, I just... you read different names in
Really?
different sources all the time. Ragozin,
it's a Ragozin.
Löwenthal, whatever.
No.
I mean, like, I think it might be a language thing. Anyway, we'll call it Ragozin from now on. Which is a perfectly good line, been played a lot at top level. I feel it is very much up Topalov's alley, because it's very concrete, requires a lot of sharp home preparation, which I believe is the area Topalov could potentially be superior to Carlsen. So I'm surprised he goes for this. But let's have a look what happens. And of course, Carlsen, even though we don't consider him an opening specialist, he's very, very smart with his choices pretty much all the time. And this is a line that's very, very interesting. This h6 followed by c5 has been quite trendy. The point is after e3, which is the main move here, black has been playing c4, grabbing more space, leading to a very unbalanced position. And there have been all kinds of crazy games in this line with bishop e2, g5, knight comes to e4, knight c6, bishop f5. A lot of sharp theory here. But Topalov played the move, which I shouldn't tell all my secrets, but I will, which I prepared for myself with white. Not that popular, but there have been some games. The move d takes c5, and I could not find a way to complete equality here for black. I thought it was a really good risk-free line, and that's why I'm not that thrilled about my prediction of Magnus Carlsen winning this game with black anymore. We will see how Magnus reacts. There is a bunch of options here. I think he played the main one with knight bd7.
Yeah.
When once again white faces a choice. The move I considered interesting here is the move queen d4, which looks strange. I believe this is the move I was slightly curious about. After bishop takes c5, just to go back, followed by e3, getting the pieces out, and I thought white was in pretty good shape. But Topalov went for something else. He went for e3, of course, completely normal move as well. Queen to a5 and the move knight to d2, which is also theoretical, but it is a bit of a sideline. So I'm not sure. I smell a little bit that Carlsen might have run into Topalov's homework here. Knight to d2 might look a bit funny, not defending the knight on c3, but it does stop black's main idea in these positions, which is to go g5, bishop g3, knight e4, putting a lot of pressure on that c3 knight. And Carlsen took on c3, b takes c, and queen takes c5. All of this has been seen before. I always slightly prefer white in this structure because of his two bishops. These weaknesses, c3 and d5, cancel each other out. I think white is a bit better, but of course there's everything to be played for. So we'll see what happens. But had I known this is the position they were going to get, I don't think I would have bet on a Carlsen win, I gotta admit.
Interesting stuff. Okay, well, let's go next to the tournament leader, Fabiano Caruana, playing white against Anish Giri. And Fabiano chooses traditionally one e4 player, clearly a bit worried about a Petrov, I think.
Yeah, Anish has played
Anish has been playing a lot of Petrovs, and a bit like Carlsen, a bit like what the other guys are doing. Actually, I read the interview with Kasparov when he was there, and he said, you know, these guys, they're playing c4 now, they're playing one knight f3, they just want to get a position and try and play some chess.
They're trying to avoid these openings that could kill the game off, like the Grunfeld, like the Petrov, like the Berlin. If they smell that's coming, very often you see them going c4, knight f3. And almost all the top guys are so flexible now, it's really hard to tell their first move even. And if you try to prepare for 4 different first moves, you will go mental before the game. So these guys, they just stick to the main lines, but it's not so much a theory game anymore. Sorry.
We've got this position, haven't we, Jan, which we've seen already at least once, maybe
We've seen
twice.
it quite a bit. We've seen it in Svidler against Kramnik.
Correct.
And we might have seen it another time. Maybe not in this tournament. Well, we've seen it a lot at the top level. They've tried a lot of stuff here. They've tried rook b1. I think that's the move Svidler played.
I think he played a3.
He played a3, yeah, you're right. They've tried that. They've tried rook b1.
And Vladdy got a great position, didn't he, against Fiddler in that, if you remember, with black. Didn't have any problems against Peter.
Well, I think Peter also didn't have any problems, but certainly he didn't cause any. So we'll see what Caruana has up his sleeve here.
We'll take d3.
The traditional main line, a3, and it could still transpose. After bishop e6, b4, we would get the position from Svidler, Kramnik, and many other games here. a5, b5, knight d4 is what they played there. But Fabiano, he goes for the move bishop e3 in this position. Bishop e3 is a common idea, but normally it's not combined with a3. Normally, if they want to do that, they don't start with a3, but they go bishop e3 or move 9, followed by rook c1, knight a4, stuff like that. So an interesting mix here. f5, quite ambitious. The more solid option would probably be to re-centralize the knight, go knight to d5. But as you said, they're basically aiming to get a game, get a position, both of them. It's modern chess. It's not what it used to be, that it's a sharp theory battle with novelties at a later stage, but just let's vary our openings, be unpredictable, get a game, show we can play chess. And both these guys certainly can play chess.
All right, let's go to another very interesting game, and there's a reason this is very interesting for me on a personal level. Let's go there first before people start thinking, what's he talking about?
Right.
Aronian Svidler. Now, as many of you may have known if you've been following us here at Chess24 for a while, I had the pleasure of commentating with Peter Svidler at for the Shamkir Classic. Peter very kindly dropped into the studio. And there was a game, and I'm trying to recall the exact game, and it's a Caruana.
Rajabov against Caruana.
Right, Rajabov Caruana, where Peter essentially said, this is the way I believe black should play in this position in order to get a decent game or, you know, hold the balance. So the big question is, we're going to come onto this position now. What are the odds that Lev Aronia went on to chess24.com, became a premium member? Of course, he's already done that, naturally. We've already got, I think, like the world's top 10 already registered, right?
We might have.
Reviewed the transmission to see what Peter had to say about this opening, and then try to find a hole in it.
Right. Well, to review the transmission, you don't even have to be a premium member.
But it helps.
Peter, of course, it does help, so by all means. But Peter, of course, he did a Grunfeld series, pretty much revealing his opening repertoire. We feel a bit guilty about this because Of course, he has to be on his toes a little bit now if his opponents have seen it and if they found any holes in it. So let's go down this line which they're playing.
We've got a Grunfeld. We're not going to spend too much time on the first moves because it's just a Grunfeld main line Rook B1 variation. I remember Peter saying this was the variation that caused him a lot of trouble at some point in his Grunfeld career. But then he seemed to find...
Not just at some point. He lost in this line against Aronian and the candidates,
Right.
let's not forget. After Rook B1, castles, Bishop E2, a lot of theory here, but Peter has been consistently going for the main line, which is this, grabbing the pawn on A2, castles.
Just to so black is a pawn up, but basically white has got the centre, and it's very difficult for... Well, it's very difficult for black to get his pieces out, the b7 pawn and so on. So pure compensation. Bishop g4. That isn't.
Yeah, this is the interesting part.
Yeah.
Bishop g4 is the move, is the main move and the move Peter recommends in his Grunfeld series. Last time around, he did not dare to play this. He played b6 against Aronian in the candidates, and he got a decent position out of the opening. He was very well prepared for this b6 stuff as well. But certainly, Levon doesn't seem to mind to repeat that.
No, it was very sharp though. I remember, and it was actually an excellent game. I remember that very clearly. That game. But Bishop g4, Rook takes b7. Now,
Well, this is a very critical point.
Yeah.
Instead of Rook takes b7, really the main discussions have been recently around the moves Bishop e3 and Bishop to g5, because Rook takes b7 at the high level has been considered to be a drawing variation. Really, it does allow what Peter plays: Bishop f3, and Bishop takes d4. And here it has been analyzed and also played in the game Rajabov Caruana to a reasonably drawish position most of the times. So the big question is, what does Levon Aronian have up his sleeve that he repeats this variation?
Very interesting to see this, because speaking to Peter, we know that he really believes that Rook takes b7. He feels like black should hold in all variations. So I wonder what Levon has got up his sleeve. Well,
I
he
think
played
Bishop g5 is already a slightly unusual move, if I'm not mistaken. I'm
Normally
trying to recall what they did in this Rajabov
Bishop
and all the other games.
B4,
Didn't they
was
play
it?
Bishop b4
Yeah.
here? And then lines like Rook d8, Queen c1,
That's right.
Knight a6, Bishop e7, Rook dc8, Queen f4, something along
Queen
these
G5.
lines, or Queen g5.
That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And after Bishop b4, Knight c6, also a viable move, and I even believe the move Peter recommended.
Yeah, he does recommend Knight c6. Yeah.
So all of this quite
Bishop
theoretical,
G5.
but
So
the
this-
position. Sorry.
No, this is the. Is this it then? Is this the?
It's a question if it makes such a big difference. The usual moves are still Rook to d8 or Knight to c6. Could make a difference after Knight c6, or
Can you go?
because here I'm not enough of a Grunfeld expert anymore. I was wondering if White had the move Rook to c7 or something like that, and his bishop on b4 is not on freeze.
Excuse me. The board has disappeared.
But Bishop g5 also has been seen. I'm not even sure.
Of course.
Maybe Bishop g5 is the main move. And it could lead to the same position, I guess, after Rook d8, Queen c1, Knight a6. Maybe this is the line they play. Maybe there's nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Bishop takes e7. And yeah.
You
I
can
think they
play
go
either.
Rook AC8.
Yeah, Rook AC8 was, and then Queen
Queen
G5.
f4, Knight c5, or yeah, maybe Queen g5.
And Knight C5, was it here? Something along those lines.
We are big Grunfeld experts, but not as big as Levon and Peter Svidler.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. Last time I checked this, which is a long, long time ago, I considered this Rook takes b7 to be just a drawing line at a higher level. So it's really going to be interesting what Levon has up his sleeve. And the other option is that he also considers this to be kind of an equalish line where maybe he can get some play for free, and he's a bit shell-shocked from this loss against Grishuk, so he just wants to play totally risk-free today and doesn't mind if it is a draw. But I kind of don't believe it. He's been going for the rook b1 consistently. He must have some
He must
ideas
have
here.
something, yeah. Thank you very much. We're getting a lot of your predictions in. We've got one from a very famous Norwegian commentator, I believe, a lady who is very important for women's chess in Norway.
Right.
I don't know if you've met her before.
Well,
You've met her a couple of times. Elisiv Reppen. Thanks, Elisiv, for tweeting us. No bias in her predictions at all. All draws apart from a Carlsen win.
well, she only gave Aktestein a draw, so she
Oh,
didn't
that's
predict
true.
1-0. That is a bit surprising.
That is true.
But that is probably pretty solid play. You know, normally games end in a draw, and Magnus Carlsen does win a lot of games. So we'll see.
She's probably just going to get a hit the nail on.
Yeah,
Well,
it's very possible.
we'll see. Thank you for the tweet, Elisiv. Who else have we got? Well, we've got Josh Stephen, thank you for yours. We've got a lot of them, so we can't put them all up, I'm afraid, because it would just take too much time. But thank you. Keep them coming, guys. Remember, this offer... Oh, we have to say when it's valid till, actually. We can't just keep the thing open until...
No, we gotta close it at 4 because then, yeah.
At 4 or 4:30? No, 4 already, because by 4:30 we might know if something's going wrong.
You know what? Let's be generous, since it's such a horrible price that people can win.
4:30?
Let's give them till 4:30.
Till the first break, right?
Right.
You've got until the first break. You've got 40 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, to send us your predictions to win our very special, unique prize that will be revealed later. 4:30, hashtag C24Live, all 5 games, please. Let's move on. Let's go to where no man has gone before, to another Grunfeld, and why not? Karyakin Grishchuk, the Battle of the Russians.
It is Grunfeld Day today.
Yeah.
Grishchuk also, well, he's flexible in the opening, but he's played a lot of Grunfelds, played a lot of King's Indians too. And Karyakin, of course, huge theoretician. We keep saying that. Hasn't always had enough punch to win these games, but certainly one of the guys whose openings I always follow very closely. He goes for another hugely popular line with bishop e3. There's a lot of move order subtleties here after c5. You start with queen d2, with rook c1, with knight f3. Everything is slightly different. Some lines eliminate some other lines. As an example, after knight f3 there is a line bishop g4, which clearly you don't have after rook c1. While after queen d2, I'm sorry, it's just the opening, geek in me speaking, we'll get back to it in a second. You have cd, knight d6, knight c6, which is a very playable line. Well, after rook c1, c3 is already protected, so knight c6 can be met with d5. But this is all subtleties, and it leads to quite often to this position they got in the game. Queen a5, queen d2, castles, knight f3, and Grishchuk goes for the move bishop g4, which is one of the main lines here. The very main line has been rook to d8. When white has been causing some trouble with the move d5, and after e6, there's the move c4, which has been played against me, but this ending is supposed to be alright for black. Queen takes d2, and black has been doing fine. But they have been playing the move bishop g5, very interesting move, trying to provoke f6, which...
What's the game I'm trying to think of that was very famous in this line, that white one sacrifices queen?
There's a couple games, I'm not sure which one you're thinking of, but it has been played at a high level, first in the game Anand against Leko, but there's been lots of followers ever since. So the interesting thing is Grishchuk, I know this because I was sitting next to it, introduced the novelty rook d6 here in a game against Henkin in the last round of the Olympiad, where Germany was playing Russia, and we lost, kind of ruining our tournament a little bit at the last Olympiad in Istanbul in 2012. And he played this move rook d6, which at the time we thought was a very strong novelty, not going for this f6, which is a little weakening, and then after bishop e3, there are all these crazy lines with e takes d, e takes d. How does it go? c4 here? Maybe not. Knight c6, bishop e2, c4, bishop c4, bishop e6, d takes e6. That could be a line. Rook d2, and bishop d2, or king d2, knight d2. A lot of interesting stuff on that line, and it looks like Grishchuk has decided to not go there. Instead, he went for the move bishop g4, which is very, very playable. Has been played by Garry Kasparov amongst others, and has been recommended by quite some authorities on the topic as well. So very interesting theory battles in progress here. That's my cup of tea. I hope they stay in theory for a while so we can keep talking about the opening. But shall we go to Kramnik against Aktestein against Kramnik?
Yeah.
Predictions keep pouring in.
The predictions are pouring in. We will keep an eye out for all of them. And we will get all of our analysts, our team of analysts. We've got about 30 in the back, just behind what looks like a white wall behind us, which isn't white at all, actually.
No,
it's pure green.
There's a joke writers for the show. There's 25 of them, which is why we keep having a lot of fresh material. There's the analysts analyzing every tweet you send us. It's a huge operation here.
Yeah. We have just got one tweet before we go to Aktestein and Kramnik. Really like this tweet from Vicente Pessoa. This is a kind of tweet that puts me in a good mood. Following from Brazil, who cares about the World Cup? Chess and C24 live rules. Love it. Thank you, Vicente. Nice. Who cares about the World Cup? I mean, it's not like the most watched sports spectacle in the world.
Especially if you're from Brazil, why would you care? Like in your home country, Brazil being the huge favourites. I'm with him though. I'm not a big football fan, so thanks a lot for watching the exciting chess instead, which is such a more fast-paced game compared to football.
Oh, it's just incredible. Thank you very much, Vicente. And we have Aktestein Kramnik. What opening did we get? Nimzo Indian, but E3. The old school.
Yeah, Seaman, he really has a very different approach than I would have, for example, in this tournament, in that he's just trying to get positions. He's not afraid of playing with these guys. He's not trying to force a draw or to dull the game out, and it has worked extremely well for him. Saying this because E3 is really a line saying, let's keep the pieces on the board. I don't want any concrete action. I'll develop. I'll go bishop D3, knight F3, and we'll get a complicated strategic battle.
What we actually get is this position, which is... We spoke about it a little earlier in the broadcast, not today, but in one of the earlier rounds, this isolated queen's pawn position. IQP. This position on the board is actually quite an important one for chess because you can reach it via numerous openings. It's not just the Nimzo Indian. You can get there via Alka, you can get there via Caro-Kann, you can get there via Queens in. You can even get there via some weird French positions.
C3 Sicilian. You could probably reach this in a couple of lines.
Yeah, this exact position.
Another reason this is an important position for chess is, if I'm not mistaken, in the match Kramnik against Kasparov, the older viewers might remember in the year 2000, where Kramnik did not lose a single game to Kasparov and won the match and the world title convincingly. This is the first game he won in this very line. No, it's the second game he won. First game he won in the Grunfeld.
Yeah.
B6. He played the move bishop g5, which has been all the rage ever since. Bishop to b7. I believe rook to c1. Knight. I have a terrible memory. I used to be really good at this. Is this the line? I'm also not 100% sure. I might have mixed something up again.
Yeah.
Please look it up. It is very similar to this. Anyway,
I do get confused in these lines. They do look similar.
Yeah. This line has been hugely important in World Championship matches. Kramnik won that game, and Anand against Topalov, they also discussed it in more than one of their games in the World Championship match where Anand won the title against Topalov, or defended the title rather. So certainly Kramnik might have spent an hour or two looking at this line, but Seaman, he does not go for what I think is the main move, bishop g5. He plays queen e2. Once again, very solid piece development. Rook to d1 is coming up. It's very much a matter of taste. I'd be worried, especially as the underdog, to give Kramnik, the play against the isolated pawn where white has to be active. But that's the great thing about Seaman. He's not a coward really playing against these guys, and he just wants to get a position.
Yeah, it's one of those positions where, actually, before I go there, we've got a great tweet here from Porti, one of our regular tweeters. Thank you, Porti. Porti says, I don't understand how, with the high-quality series of videos, there are still people who are not premium. You will not regret it. I couldn't agree.
Thanks, Porti.
Just hit the nail on the head, right?
And there's exciting new series coming out by Mr. Lawrence Trent.
Very soon.
By yours truly. We have a great King's Indian series by Robin van Kampen in the making. I'm quite excited about that one. Our Dutch friend Robin, shout out to him. And the predictions keep coming. Thanks, guys. We'll study them all in detail.
Back to this game, though, and it's, again, just before we go over the moves, it's one of those, Julian Hodgson was famously quoted saying something about IQPs. Do you know what he said?
I don't know.
He said, I don't know the right way to attack when I'm on the white side or with the IQP, and I have no clue how to defend when I'm on the...
Right.
Basically, he was making a joke that I've always been a fan of having the isolated queen's pawn. I've always found that it fits my style of rapid development. But for some people, really good players like Kramnik can of course play both sides, and with some success. What side do you prefer to play? You prefer to play without the isolated queen's pawn, right?
No, actually,
No?
I'm not sure. I'm a bit with Julian Hodgson on this, and I know a lot of strong players who feel that way. They don't really like it with either side. With white, you're kind of making a positional concession, which I don't like, to have a weakness in my pawn structure. While with black, you're a little passive and you have to be careful not to get attacked on the king side. So, of course, this reasoning is not logical, but there's a lot of guys who feel, you know what, I don't really feel that comfortable in IQP positions on either side, so I'm trying to build my repertoire to avoid them. But in practice, I've played more of the white side where I have the isolated queen's pawn, because a lot of d4 repertoires, for example, or even e4, if you go for critical lines, you will end up with an isolated pawn there and have play in return. Let's see what they did in this game. Queen e2, bishop b7, fairly logical, rook d1.
Very standard
This
stuff.
is interesting. The move h6. I don't think that's the main move in this position. Clearly trying to prevent bishop to g5. And once again, a bit of a don't try this at home situation, right? To spend a tempo on a non-developing move, even committing on the king side, the pawn to h6. It's a sound idea to stop bishop g5, but you need a degree in isolated queen's pawns to know when you can get away with a move like that. Instead of h6, the normal setup, I believe, would be maybe already here taking on c3 to stop all white d5 ideas, takes knight bd7. We've seen this kind of setup quite a bit, where black puts his queen on c7, his rook on c8, rook on e8, gives up the two bishops, and plays a position like that. So Kramnik, he wants to keep it more tense, I guess, went for h6.
You went for a Kramnik win, right?
I did go for a Kramnik win,
Thank
which
goodness for that. Yeah.
probably not going to happen. I've seen the next moves as well. Thank you.
Woo! What's on the menu, Mr. Gustafsson?
I really got to stop the bleeding.
This is beautiful. Okay, bishop e3. We'll explain why. After bishop e3, Kramnik played knight c6, which is definitely a strange move in this position. Normally, this knight comes to be d7 for various reasons. It blocks the d file, it protects the knight. But he moved it to c6.
That's consistent with h6, because after h6 you don't have to worry about bishop g5 pinning that knight anymore. So you don't need to reinforce it that much with knight bd7. The reason we don't like it, or I don't like it after betting on Kramnik win, is that gives white the option to simplify with d5.
Always looking to play it in this position if he can, isn't he, white?
Well, it depends. I don't think it poses a lot of problems for black objectively. I think he can probably keep simplifying, and the game is a heavy favorite to end in a draw. But it does eliminate most of black's winning chances, which were based on the structure, if we're not mistaken here. So a very decent practical decision by Seaman, and he might even keep some initiative. But if you bet on a Kramnik win like I did, you're not all that happy to see this move. And by bet, I mean predicted. There's no money involved except for the dinners I keep losing
No.
to Mr. Trent, which is very, very painful, I will tell you that much.
All right.
So d5. The point
D5
is,
played.
black released control over that square for a move. If next move he would have gone knight a5, the chance might have passed, so good timing here. Black has to take, and knight takes d5. I think this has been played. And there's not that much to be said. Black has to be a little bit careful not to allow white to get an initiative. I'm pretty sure Kramnik will be. He has to consider his next move. He could take on d5. He could also move his bishop, but let's say takes on d5. Looks like the most natural choice. Bishop takes probably, queen to f6.
Yeah, that feels correct.
And there's not all that much to play for. It's a symmetrical structure. Black will go rook d8, rook e8. White will go bishop e3, rook c1. On
Something like this.
something like this, yeah. And black has to be slightly careful to coordinate his pieces, but it's not that much of a challenge. But white can never ever lose this unless something drastic happens. So yeah, if you haven't gotten your prediction in yet, I would not advise to bet on a Kramnik win anymore. Predicted Kramnik win.
Let's go to a tweet from Sean O'Connor, who says, at GM Jan Gustafsson. That's you, Jan.
That is me.
I loved your explanation of the exchange Slav a few days ago. Do you have any videos on that? I'll sign up.
You know what?
Why
If
haven't you
people
done
are
an
excited about the
Slavs?
exchange Slav, I'll do a video series on it. I wasn't sure because it might be such a snooze fest, but I've played it a lot and I do consider it a series opening. So thanks for the suggestion. I will put it on my to-do list and you'll get a lovely explanation of the exchange Slav, which is a better opening than people give it credit for. I actually really think so.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean O'Connor.
Let's shoot back to world champion, because we've had a few moves, and the last time we saw it was after queen takes c5, and you said rook c1 rather. You like white, he's got the two bishops, etc., and let's see what
Well,
happens.
nothing too drastic happens. We've seen the same structure, for example, in the game Aktestein against Giri, if we recall, right? They had this exact same structure, slightly
Correct.
different piece positioning. Bishop e2. And since it's Magnus Carlsen playing, he finds a way to spice it up very
Wow.
quickly. He goes after the a2 pawn. Once again, a bit of a don't try this at home. Keeps moving your queen before you develop your pieces. And of course, this is something Topalov doesn't need to be asked twice. He doesn't even think about passively defending his pawn here, but he's excited to give up the pawn to open up the position and get attacking chances.
Well, he did
Castles.
castle.
Queen
and
takes
castle.
a2 and c4, opening up the position. Bit similar to this Grunfeld, isn't it?
It's amazing that we've got two queen takes a2s on the
Right.
board. I can't remember the last time that happened in two different openings at least.
Yeah, black is a pawn up
Black has won a
in
pawn.
both, but he is way back in development. White has the two bishops, and I gotta tell you, I really like White's position here.
I have to admit, I think Carlsen fans be slightly concerned. If this were somebody else with white, I wouldn't mind so much. But Topalov, this is where he excels, isn't it? These dynamic positions where he's got initiative, where he's got attacking chances.
I think he excels when dynamic play is natural in the position, because he will play dynamically, aggressively, no matter if the position warrants it or not. Sometimes we've seen him play g4, g5 in positions where it maybe wasn't called for. But here, active pieces, a lot of action in the center, development advantage. He has to play dynamically, and that flows naturally to him. So let's not overreact. It is Magnus Carlsen with an extra pawn. He played the move knight e4, probably a good move. I like White's position here. It will get very concrete. White already here has many options that look quite tempting, actually. Knight takes e4, d takes e c5, for example, to play bishop to c4,
Wow.
exploit his development advantage, occupy the center. Probably black can stop it with knight e5. It will get very concrete, but white has many tempting options here. Doesn't have to.
Rook
Yeah,
c2.
he can go for this as well, for example.
Wow.
Queen a4, nice little move, because c d5, knight takes d2, all of a sudden
Wow.
wins material,
That's
or
cute.
so it looks at the very least.
It's
So
just-
yeah, this will be some heavy calculating. I wouldn't be surprised if Topalov takes quite a bit of time here to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I like his position, and I think so does he.
Absolutely. Okay, so really concrete stuff going on there. Let's look at the leader again, Mr. Caruana. We had a couple moves after f5, rook c1,
Centralize.
king h8, and b4. And now a6. Okay.
Really playing a reverse Sicilian, building up. I don't think this is very theoretical anymore. Anish decides, which is consistent with f5, since e5 is a little weak, to stop b5 with a6. And next, he could embark on a plan which I'm sure you would approve, which is, let's say any move. Queen c2 is probably not a good move. But to play f4, bishop d2, and queen e8 followed by queen h5 to build some attacking chances. Of course, f4 always double-edged because you give up the e4 square. So nothing's for free, but for starters, Fabiano has to find a good move. And the one I said, queen c2, also has a drawback, it runs into knight d4 with tempo, so it's probably not a good move. And it's not that easy to come up with one. Maybe
think-
queen d2.
I don't like the queen on d2 in these.
Me neither.
I mean, immediately, yeah. I always feel like I'm running into trouble after a
So
knight.
knight d4.
It might not even work. You might be able to
I
take
thought
on
here
e5.
you give the exchange. Yeah.
Give the exchange, but with the queen, does it feel right on? Wow, it doesn't feel. No, he's not going to play queen d2. I say that, and then he'll probably play queen d2.
I'm
I
not
think-
that sure. Yeah.
What about a move like knight a4? Is that obscene?
No, that's a typical device as well. You have to think about if e4 is a problem, because you can't take, because of queen takes d1. But you don't have to take. You can go somewhere with a knight, probably to e1 to cover d3.
A4
No,
is
it's certainly
very,
an option.
very committal as well, isn't it? I mean,
It is, it is.
I don't know. Knight a4 seems like a typical kind of move here.
Right.
But
Any
then
typical
again-
play would be,
You can take and
E4
play
doesn't
bishop
work.
d5.
now you're worried about rook takes
Yeah,
c6
well,
ideas.
yeah, you have to go
So
bishop
you
d5.
gotta go here to shore up this diagonal.
I don't know. Rook fd1. I don't know. And if
No, I
f4.
gotta tell you, I think black is fine here.
Yeah.
He never has to commit with f4 or e4 unless it's good. He can always go for a slower build-up. I don't know, in this position, bishop d6, queen f6, rook a e8. And if white doesn't create anything concrete, feels a bit easier to play black here.
No. I would agree with that one. I would agree.
Let's go to our Grunfeld battles. Can we have a look at Karyakin Grishuk, for example?
Sure. Well, knight g5 still on the board. This is the last position we saw.
I don't think we've seen knight g5 yet. It's a typical move actually
Yeah.
in these positions, because you obviously don't want to allow bishop takes f3. Knight g5 looks a bit funny because of course it can get chased away with h6. But white's point is that after h6 he will play h3 himself. And if the bishop retreats, let's say to d7, then knight f3, white has gained more than black. h6 is hanging, bishop g4 is stopped for good because of the pawn on h3. Black would have to spend another tempo on king h7, which is a bit sad, or to release the center with c takes d4. So knight g5, very typical idea, and I think it's known to theory as well, as usual. Struggling to remember, I think black can go for the ending here with c takes d4. Can probably go for a move like knight c6 as well, when we get some very, very unbalanced positions. This is a plausible line. Let's say knight bishop e2, where both sides have their trumps, and they're very, very tricky to play if you're not a PhD in the Grunfeld, like a lot of these Russian guys, Grishuk, Svidler. They really, really understand these positions.
Absolutely. Let's go to the other Grunfeld, because we've gone down this line, Jan. Bishop g5, rook d8.
They reached this position.
Yeah, queen c1.
Knight a6.
Knight a6, we said this, bishop e7 and rook ac8. So this
Is the position they had in,
yeah.
what was it, Rajabov Karana,
Rajabov
amongst
Karana.
other things, I believe. And yeah, we'll see what Levon has up his sleeve. He went queen f4. I think this is also the move they played.
I'm sure it was queen g5.
Maybe they played queen g5 in that game. And here, wasn't this the game? Please let us know, or we'll look it up in a second. I believe there's the move rook c2. Is this what they played?
No, it was with,
maybe it was with the queen on g5. Maybe
it was with the bishop and knight. I mean, no, it was different.
Still, what happens after rook c2?
If you
Bishop takes t8. I want to go rook takes f2. Maybe black is winning here.
Amazingly, the queen on a2 protects the f7 pawn. That's key.
That is very important. And yeah, this does not work for white, so he would have to defend his pawn on f2. Maybe with the move bishop h4. And wow, this is... It's easy to say this is a draw at the highest level, and it could very well be if you're very precise. But over the board, this certainly looks like there is a lot of tension and options for both sides. Like white, if he manages to get an e5, e6, e5, bishop f6, queen h6, black with his play against the f2 pawn has to get his knight into the game, so he would probably play knight c5 here. Very, very complicated, but I do believe that this position is well known to theory, and I believe it has been played before, that Peter has something here. And I think it's not the move rook c2 we were looking at, but the move knight to c5. This looks very, very familiar. Bishop d8, knight takes b7, bishop f6, bishop takes, queen takes, knight c5 or queen e6 here. Something along these lines. This ending, I would not be surprised if it has already been played. Queen takes, pawn takes, rook a1. I think we've seen this in high-level games, and it is supposed to end in a draw. But that's just one of many lines, and it's going to be very interesting. Yeah, Peter's played knight c5. Where this is going. White could also take on c5, but this looks like very little. Bishop takes c5, opposite colored bishops.
You went for an Iranian win today, didn't you, like me?
Yeah, I'll be wrong in every result once again, which is quite hard to do, because if you choose randomly, you do have a... What chance do you have? I was going to say 0-3-3. Maybe that's not accurate. Because draws are more likely than wins, so probably you don't have that chance if you just pick a result randomly.
If you went for 5 draws, you'd do a lot better, wouldn't you?
I think if you go for 5 draws every time, it's very hard not to have a round with any draws.
Right. Very interesting. Okay, and actually he did take on d8.
Right.
So black will...
You want to bet that Peter will take on b7 here. I was going to say, but then I thought maybe knight d3 is an alternative, so I should not. No, he will take on b7, I believe. But knight d3 is a curious move. Let's look at it.
Oh my goodness. Phew. Unbelievable.
Complicated.
I don't
Queen
understand.
h4.
Queen h4, you got to...
Knight takes f2. Point, of course, is that rook takes f2 runs into queen a1, which would, or rook c1, which would be very, very unpleasant.
Yeah.
But of course, white would not take on back on f2, and
he took on b7.
such a mess. Yeah, probably this doesn't work. Black has a piece down,
Bishop
a rook down, and white can go h3 to create some luft. And yeah, this is the line I mentioned, which I'm sure has been seen in practice before. Black will take on f6 and play queen e6 or knight c5. I would expect queen e6. And it is very risk-free for white, but it is not something I would expect you can beat Peter Svidler in this kind of ending. So it could be that Levon told himself, you know what, I got my queen trapped on move 13 in my last game. I need a little breather. I'll go for a risk-free ending. Maybe I'll get some chances. If not, not the end of the world. but I would expect Peter to hold this, which, once again, all my predictions are shaping up beautifully.
Well, wow. You could really get it all wrong today, right?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, really.
All right, interesting. Remember to send us your tweets, people. Hashtag C24 Live. We're getting a few. Thank you for them coming through. We want to hear some more, though. Chess enthusiast. Yes, you were right. Svidler thinking in a Grunfeld defense game. I remember him commentating on this line during the Gashmov Memorial. Right, I was sitting next to him, and he was talking about this exact, well, not this exact position, but basically the one 2 moves earlier. So it would be strange if he didn't know what was.
Yeah, of course he's familiar with it, but he's also trying to figure out, I'm playing against the world number 2, he's going for this line, what does he have up his sleeve? Where does he want to try to hit me, and how can I stop him from doing that? So there's not just knowledge of what has been played, but also of where could I be vulnerable, what is he up to? So it's not surprising he does take some time here, but I do believe he is familiar with this position.
We have had a move in Caruana Giri. Bishop c5.
Interesting choice, getting rid of this bishop on e3 ASAP before it gets hit with f4 or knight to d5. The question is, can black take on c5? Does that help? Or does it hurt his structure? And now either knight d5 or knight d7. Yeah.
Knight d5, yeah.
This looks quite natural to me, I gotta say.
Yeah, knight d7 doesn't look natural, does it?
No, that, I don't know, d4, there's some action in the center. No, this has to be good for white.
White is better, right?
Yeah, this is definitely white is better. Because, well, he has more central control. Black probably has to play c6, leaving him with a weakness on b7 and d6. His king is slightly weak in the long term with a pawn on f5. So you can't go here.
No, but knight d5 would be played.
Knight d5, I think, looks like a very natural choice. Something like queen b3, knight c3, queen c3, queen to f6, a position like that. I would say black is kind of okay. He has this new weakness on b7 now, so white could go rook b1, probing it a little bit. But rook a b8, I think black should be alright. Rook d8, bishop d5. There's still this e4 idea in the air. I'm guessing he's okay, but very interesting decision, this move bishop d5. I kind of like it, changing the nature of the game. Because it's not forced to take it either.
Yeah, a5 is an interesting move, just because white always responded b5 after a5, and now it doesn't look like it's so easy to do that.
Well, you can take and then go b5.
Yeah, but now your a3 pawn is...
Knight takes e5, or you have bishop b3.
I've also got bishop b3.
Yeah, it's winning a piece.
So knight d4, and if you have to take, takes. Well, yes, my b7 pawn, but your a3 pawn is hanging as well. And I'm not sure about this. I think this could be dangerous with the passed a pawn.
Could be a very, very concrete play.
I'm not happy about that.
Interesting option.
I'm not happy about that at all, I think, for white, if I'm honest. I don't want to go knight b1. That feels utterly passive. Just bishop d5. And black is
looks
fine.
For black.
Black is fine. All right, so see how Anish manages to deal with that in Ajestein Kramnik. We have basically the position we said a few minutes ago. He's going to put his rook on d1, his rook on d8. He's going to kick the bishop. The bishop's probably going to drop back to here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess so, yeah. Every square you could make a case for d6, e7, f8, but bishop f8 does look the most natural.
And then
rook ac1, rook ac8, or rook d6, rook d8, you know. Sometimes white has a little something in these positions. I believe there's a famous game, Kasparov-Karpov, where they had this structure, and Kasparov tricked him and won with white. But in general, a draw is a very heavy favorite here. Black has to be a little more precise than white. But no, this I expect to end in a draw.
Very interesting stuff. We've got another tweet here from RW. Says, is this what you do in your time when you're not gambling away pasta dinner? Did we bet on a pasta dinner? Or
We always do. Give me some. Sorry.
Is this what you do when you're not gambling away all your pasta dinners? What's the story behind this?
Oh, a lovely picture. Now I see it.
Maybe we can get that picture up, Mr.
It's from the Thailand Open.
Right.
My favorite tournament, the one tournament I play every year. And they do have a photo shoot in the water at every tournament. That is a tradition there because it's always in nice places next to the water. And yeah, we have a nice picture there from me against what's her name? I will horribly mispronounce it. Charisma Sukandar?
I have no idea who she is, I'll be honest. She's Thai champion or something?
No, she's from I'm horribly misinformed about anything. Indonesia, I believe.
Oh, Indonesia.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she's a woman grandmaster, and yeah, we had a nice photo shoot, nice blitz game in the water. I think it was a draw. Most of my games do end in draws. But yeah, I did not lose a pasta dinner on that one. Not a lot of pasta in Thailand, they're more into...
Noodles.
Isn't that the same thing? I was going to say rice.
Noodles, all right. No, it's different to pasta.
Okay.
It's different.
Yeah. Highly recommended the Thailand Open. It is a greatly organized tournament every year in April. I really enjoy it.
Well, there you go. There's the picture, ladies and gentlemen. You look happy. You look cool with your sunglasses.
Yeah, I should get sunglasses. Maybe for the show. It's very bright in this
It is very
studio,
bright
isn't
in
it?
the studio. Yeah, it absolutely is. And did you win that blitz game?
No, it was a draw.
It was a draw.
Most of my games end in draws, as we know.
You did have the white pieces, though, right?
I did. Have
Did
the
you
white
press
pieces.
a little bit?
It was a photo shoot, so at some point they tell you, cut it off, draw. You know, that's what really happens.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thanks, RW. This is an interesting question. We'll take this question just before we go to break.
Which question is that?
From Daniel Beltran, with which player's style do you identify most, Jan Gustafsson? Who do you try to imitate, or
I
maybe?
think in spirit I'm closest to Michael Tal.
That's
you know,
Michael.
sharp attacking
That's
games,
Michael-
sacrificing
That's
pieces
Michael
all over the
Tell, the
place.
FIDE master from Munich, right? who plays only exchange variations.
Right. No, I'm
Not
a big fan
Mikhail
of
Tal.
Mikhail Tal, but I haven't quite managed to emulate his style. I don't know. I used to be a big Kramnik fan. Growing up, I studied his games and I studied his openings and what he did. So nowadays, it's hard to say. You try to take bits and pieces. I'm a big Aronian fan, especially. Well, also his openings, the way he handles certain positions, the way he comes up with ideas, his creativity, his way of putting pressure. But I'm not sure whose style I'm closest to. Probably a player who draws a lot of games, basically. Who's your?
You're like Bogdan Lalic, then. He's got a high draw percentage.
He has a very high draw percentage as well, yeah. No, mine has dropped a bit, but it's mainly... Well, I like to think because I became a bigger fighter, but it's mainly because I play weaker opponents when I play nowadays. I play in opens or low in the Bundesliga. So you have more decisive results. The stronger guys crush me now. The weaker guys, I can still win a game here and there. But yeah, at heart, I'm still a solid player. Unlike Lawrence Trent, the firebrand from England.
Who's my... I would say... I feel like I'm a bit like Bador Jovava, except I've got no talent.
No, but I think we're talking about chess style, not nightlife habits.
Oh, right, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, Bador has been my inspiration over the past couple of years when I started playing again. I also am a big... Well, there are a few people. I've always liked Morozevich. He always inspired me. Topalov in his glory years at least, and yeah, obviously the old greats, people like, well, I mean, yeah, Mikhail Tal has to stand out for me. But even Morphy, I was always very impressed with his.
He was pretty good.
I mean, considering the guy was playing in the 19th century.
So far ahead of
He
his
was
time. It's
so
ridiculous.
far.
I think he was the most ahead of his time
Yeah,
ever.
yeah, absolutely. Actually, Alekhine as well. I did a series on Alekhine for Chess 24 people. Got some amazing. He was an amazing player. His attacks, Kasparov once quoted, his attacks came from nothing. They just came out of nowhere. They just boom, and then suddenly you're getting checkmated. So look at that series. Look at all the series we've got on Chess 24. We've also got my favourite Kasparov games. Who, of course, Kasparov, just unbelievable in the 80s. I actually remember talking to Magnus Carlsen after the World Championship final. The last when he was, I think it was either on the verge or just when he'd won. I remember we were sitting at dinner. I came in, and I've got an amazing little story. Actually, I can't believe I've never shared this with you.
Beautiful.
We'll do this and then we'll go to break. But basically, when Garry Kasparov played Magnus Carlsen in 2004, I believe it was, in the Reykjavik tournament, when Carlsen was just this 13-year-old kid duffing up Garry Kasparov. He ended up losing, but he drew one and should have.
It was a match, right? He drew the first.
He drew the
lost
first
the second.
and lost it, but he shouldn't
put pressure on the first.
Really put pressure on. Kasparov gave him a signed copy of My Great Predecessors.
Right.
And in that, and I know this because I was with Magnus earlier this year in Oslo, and he showed me this book. He said something along the lines of, you've got what it takes to be the best ever. And this was in 2004. So Kasparov prophecy was that Carlsen was going to be world champion someday.
Interesting.
Anyway, I actually borrowed this copy of My Great Predecessors.
You changed the name Carlsen to Trent.
I didn't, I wish. And I was due to give it back to him in the World Championship finals. And I said, here you go. And I was at dinner with Magnus. And I said, here you go, and he looked at that first page. He just stayed there for a while, just remembering.
Right.
It's quite a special moment that, the greatest player of all time predicts that you're going to be the one. And so, Kasparov for me, up there, I associate nothing with Magnus Carlsen. My style of play is horrific for Magnus Carlsen. He and I, we just have completely, totally different spectrums, ends of the spectrum. But Kasparov, I can associate somehow because he was just so amazingly gifted with the initiative, and of course he could play all positions. But there were in his glory years in the 80s. Have a look at my series on Chess 24 for some of his absolutely brilliant attacks and games, just out of this world stuff. So check that out, and there's a little story for you. That's gonna be with me for a while. I'm getting emotional.
Heartwarming. We need a break to talk about this, but thanks for the story. It's really cute.
It was a nice story. We'll be back, guys, in just a few minutes. And remember, you've got seconds. As soon as that camera goes off, the competition closes for our very, very special prize. So if you want to send in your predictions, do it now. You've got the benefit of seeing all the positions. What's going to happen? See you in a few minutes. You like that story?
Nice.
Welcome back, everybody. This is round number 4 of Norway Chess on Chess 24, the only place to be in NYC. I couldn't think of another place to say, so I just used NYC.
I think that's our key demographic. It's people from NYC. What time is it in NYC?
It's late enough now. It's already, what is it, like 11:30 in the morning?
It's like 6 hours. It's 5 here. Yeah, 11 there.
Yeah.
No players from NYC. Well, arguably Fabiano Caruana hails from New York City, but is based in... Where is he based? In Italy nowadays?
I don't think he is based in Italy, actually. I think he's based elsewhere.
Switzerland?
I think it's in Switzerland. Actually, I can't remember where he is. He's all over the place. But, he's playing... They're all playing. And where should we go first, Jan? Because...
Let's go to Aronian Svidler for a second.
All right.
We have a couple moves in this Grunfeld theory battle. Not that many. Queen takes f6. Svidler decided against this move. Queen e6 probably didn't fancy the immediate ending with some small weaknesses. Went knight c5, naturally enough. Aronian went h4 with the plan of going h5, h6, queen g7 mate. So Svidler chased the queen away from e6, offering the ending once again. Now after queen takes e6, he could just take with a knight if he so fancied, with a probable draw. Aronian kept the queens on, queen a1, still trying to cash in on that diagonal. And I had a quick look during the break. Being the exchange master I am, I like the move knight b3 here. The point being queen takes a7, knight to d2. And no matter where the rook goes, let's say rook d1, takes, queen f6, I don't think you can lose this position with black. So after knight b3, you could not take on a7, but then my next move would be a5. And I believe black is totally fine. So expecting a draw in this one as well.
Interesting. Okay, let's see the world champion. What happened? After knight e4, that's the last position we left.
Right. Topalov, well, my tempting options, you mentioned rook c2. He decided to take on e4, d takes e. Now, he didn't play the move c5, we mentioned, most likely because of knight to e5, stopping bishop c4. But he put his position deeper, his bishop deeper in the heart of the position. Bishop e7, rook e8 forced, and bishop to d6. Still planning to go c5. Lured the rook away from the defense of f7, if that ever becomes a factor. Still a pawn down, but I still think his position is at least easier to play. He wants to go c5, bishop c4, queen h5. Magnus Carlsen has to do something about it. I was thinking about b6, but that runs into all kinds of nasty stuff like queen d5.
Oh goodness.
All of a sudden, this rook is very, very hard to defend. Bishop a6, rook a1, or, well, probably bishop h5 is many terrible options.
Yeah, rook a1.
Rook a1, e2 is hanging, but this move is nice. Attacking this guy and planning to go rook a1 next. So you can't go b6. He has to find a way to develop his pieces. Maybe he will go knight to f6, planning to bring this bishop out to e6 or f5. Still, white goes c5. And I like white's position. It just seems easier to play. Bishop e6, let's say. You can always go bishop b5, or you could go for something like rook c2, followed by queen d4. Black has an extra pawn, but it will take a long time until they get moving. I don't really think Magnus Carlsen will lose this game. I never think he's going to lose anything because he's Magnus Carlsen. But I do like Topalov's position here.
Okay.
What do you want to see? Achterstein?
Yeah. This is my... I should thank Seaman again for... Seaman might be getting me a few dinners this week.
He's been earning you lots of dinners already. And I should stop betting against the Norwegians, especially him. I haven't bet much against Magnus Carlsen. a3, bishop f8. He went for... not for rook c1, but for an even more solid setup with rook d2, planning rook a d1.
I like it.
Really a rocky solid position. Rook d6, rook a d1, rook a d8 will most likely follow. Yeah, there's not that much to say. Black is solid enough not to run into trouble, but it's impossible to lose this position. You can play b4, queen b5, h3 is a move you probably want to play at some point. So yeah. Very, very solid play by Seaman Achterstein, and not going to face any trouble today, I don't think. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the other games then, Jan. And we've got Caruana Giri. Giri did play a move. He played the
Bishop g8.
Mysterious Bishop g8.
Is this the point where you're going to start insulting him and calling him pretentious again?
No,
playing a pretentious Bishop g8?
I don't think so. I don't think this move is pretentious. I actually think it's a pretty decent one. The bishop is often susceptible to some attacks on e6 and does a good job on g8, still patrols this diagonal. Also, believe it or not, protects h7. No, it might not seem like a lot, but in the future it could be important. And it also just says to white, okay, you've played bishop c5, and what?
Your move.
Your move. If you take me off, I'm just going to play queen takes e7. I've got easy development, rook a d8. I've got e4 and f4 always in the air. What are you doing?
Knight d4 always in the air as well,
d4.
the typical resource.
So
I think, yeah,
good move, Bishop G8. No,
equal position.
yeah, just white. White really doesn't have much. And
Could well think about d4. Now, it's still well met by e4. I
no,
would guess.
d4 is met by e4.
And
and
yeah,
now
this
this
kind of position. Knight
Knight
d2.
We
let's
might even
say.
just play knight d5. Right?
Yeah, I think black is quite solid here.
And anything like this would be well, you can't complain with black actually.
No, the bishop on g2 is always a bit passive, as we've
Yeah.
seen yesterday, a similar structure where Anish was suffering from having that bishop locked up on g2. Not yesterday, day before yesterday against Kramnik. One brief visit to Karyakin Grishuk.
Before we do that, we've got a tweet, Jan, from Kevin Go.
What was he telling us?
Kevin Go is hi from Singapore. I had a long day at work, but you guys are keeping me awake. Irene is Indonesian current Asian champ.
Right.
Wow, there we go.
Indonesian, I got right. Ah, yeah, her name is Irene Charisma Sukandar. I think I just called her Charisma. Sorry about that. And she is the Asian women's champion, women grandmaster, very strong player. And we got an audience in Singapore as well, which is beautiful. Thanks for watching, Kevin Go.
He's also an international master, Kevin Go. He's actually one of believe it or not, if I'm right, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. I actually use a lot of your analysis, a bit of a theoretician on the French amongst other openings. Yeah, so thank you, Kevin. 6-time Singaporean champion. Kevin, I'd love to go to Singapore to play.
I've never been to Singapore.
I'd love to go to Singapore. Let's go to Singapore.
Place.
Kevin, get in touch with me. Tweet me. I'd love to go if we can organise it something, somehow in the near future. Absolutely love it. All right, thanks, Kevin. Let's see if we've got any more tweets. We've got interesting one from Chess News. I think this might be a good time to take it as we're at a bit of a pause in the action.
Oh,
yeah, a tiny little pause, not too much going on. Chess News says Norway has not entered the race for organising the match Carlsen-Anand. Do you think Norwegians want to postpone the World Chess Championships?
I don't think so, and I'm not sure if they haven't entered the race. From what I've read and heard behind the scenes, there were quite some intents going on to find sponsorship for the match in Norway. I believe one of the problems is that the timeline was very close. They wanted to have the match in November this year, which for a sponsor to put up their money and get the effect and organize everything might be a little close. So I don't think the Norwegians want to postpone it, and I do think they want the match to happen. But it could very well be that they don't manage to put a bid together in Norway or anywhere else in time, so the match does get postponed.
Absolutely. Well, I think Carlsen, I think he said himself that he doesn't really mind where the match does take place. He doesn't really get affected by these things. Although I think if it were to take place in Norway, there might be a bit of added pressure. We saw it in India, but I was there, so I know. I can tell you, I've never seen anything like it at a chess tournament. It was like two superstars of world, football or something. Cristiano Ronaldo turning up. It was just
Vishy Anand in India is a serious superstar. 6 times Sportsman of the Year. I'm not sure about the 6 times, but many times got all the highest honors in India. So he is a megastar there. And I agree with your point. I've always believed that in chess, it's not an advantage to play at home. You have more distractions. You don't really have the crowd cheering for you during the game. It doesn't help all that much at the very least.
Right.
So I believe these guys are quite comfortable playing away from home. But of course for Norway, which is also, there's a huge chess craze there, as you can see by all the media coverage and the Magnus Carlsen effect. He's all over the place. Yeah. I would say it's not a stretch to say he's the most famous Norwegian by quite a margin right now.
I'm not sure if he's the most famous Norwegian, but I think I remember reading a poll that he's definitely sort of in the top 10, top 5 maybe.
Who could be more famous than Magnus Carlsen?
Just some random footballers or some random musicians, I think, are still possibly a bit more famous. But no, he's
interesting.
He's super famous, and he's a national icon now. Let's not forget it. We've had action in Aronian Svidler, and it looks like our colleague Peter is holding the fort. We last saw it after Queen
he
A1,
just took
but
on
he just
E4.
took on E4.
He didn't go for the simplification with knight B3.
It's
just snapped off the pawn.
It's a good enough move, and after rook E1, just protected with F5.
It looked a bit risky, but this, once again, is probably such small details that there's nothing really to be worried about.
We're going to get this position. It's 3 against 3.
Rook
Does
E8.
he have to be careful? Rook E8, and now Queen's somewhere.
Well, he has to be careful to cover the 7th rank, and white is still a little more comfortable on paper, but the thing is, even if you win the E4 pawn, it will probably lead to exchanges of queens, and a 3 against 2 rook ending is just a draw on this level. So I don't expect Peter to get in trouble here, but Levon can continue playing without any risk, of course.
Yeah,
and he will continue playing
We've got
a bit.
this position on the board. No, I do you know what's a good move here? I think the move Queen E5 is a good move. Just controlling some dark squares, not allowing white to play Queen D4.
Could be. I was worried about something like Rook D1, but there's always Rook C7 shoring up the 7th rank if it's needed.
Rook E8.
Rook D7, you're not
So,
afraid?
E3.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm controlling G7 as well, so I mean I'm never
Right.
controlling this diagonal, and no, this is just a dead draw. No, this will end in a draw, I'm sure. So that's 0 out of 1 for our predictions so far, but we're happy for Peter. We're happy for Peter for having... We'll wait till he does hold it, but we're pretty sure he will hold it.
Right.
Let's go to
Topalov Carlsen.
Right.
Carlsen just played the move A5. He went knight F6 to get some pieces out. Rook to A1 has been played, forcing the queen to go to B2, strictly only move. And now Topalov went C5. And Carlsen played A5. Very much like in the spirit of this Grunfeld line and the other line. Black has some problems in the center, but he does have his A-pawn, so if in doubt, push the A-pawn. Bishop C4, I believe he can go Bishop E6, neutralizing that guy. Of course, white could probably get his pawn back with Queen Rook B1. But this position does not look all that scary for black anymore. He has his own passed pawn. Looks roughly equal, I would say. So we'll see
Could
what
Carlsen with his
Topalov
chances,
comes
though, because these are the sorts of positions, Jan, where I think if you're white, you felt like you had this huge initiative, but suddenly some pieces come off, it gets equal, and that's the sort of position, that's really where Carlsen starts.
Right.
You know, I remember speaking to Mickey Adams about this, and Mickey just said he hasn't met anybody in his chess career who can just outplay somebody from an equal position so easily in a middle game, end game. Julian Hodgson said the same thing. He just said, that's where the game starts for Magnus. Get a few pieces off, let's start playing. So if it got to a position like that, especially with the imbalance of knight versus bishop, I wouldn't bet against him churning out a result.
Right.
Let's go to Karyakin Grishchuk.
Some more moves have been made here. We last saw knight G5. Grishchuk played the move knight A6. Pretty typical idea as well, to leave the D7 square open for the bishop, and the line I was showing was with knight C6 to avoid getting hit with tempo after D5. And here, after H3, bishop D7. I believe D5 has been played here a couple times. Then black has the interesting move C4, freeing, first of all, the C5 square for his knight, and if stopping white's C4. And if bishop C4, there's rook C8, giving you a lot of counterplay against C3 on the C file. So Karyakin does not like this D5 C4 business. He just develops with bishop D3. I would expect Grishchuk to probably go rook AC8 and see what Karyakin does. If he goes D5, you still have C4. He could castle, but that runs into C takes D4 and D5. D4 would be hanging, I guess. Yeah, this does not work for white at all. So a bit of a decision after rook C8. I think his point is that he wants to go D5 and then after C4 put the bishop on B1, where it protects e4, protects d3, protects a2, and play this position, which I think it's complicated. I think black should be alright. Has this b5, b4 idea many times to create some counterplay on the queen side. We'll see how it goes.
Interesting stuff. Okay, in the Adlerstein game, we still have this position after rook a8. Kramnik fully equalised, but can he do more than that? We will soon see.
I don't think so, because every logical continuation will lead to piece exchanges, like knight a5 is in the air, but it can always be met by bishop takes b7 and swapping down on the d file. I don't think Seaman has enough resources to create an initiative here. I think Kramnik is solid, but no more than that.
And if Seaman draws this, that will be 4 draws. But pressing, winning against Karyakin with black,
Right.
pressing with black against Aronian, and he's actually just not been in any trouble at all so far. He's not been worse.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think he's been okay.
Could be.
He's been all right.
No, great tournament. And if he draws today, he has surpassed the score of Jon Ludvig Hammer from last year's tournament. Another very strong Norwegian player who lost a rapid match, I believe, to Seaman Acterstein qualifying for this tournament. Yeah, so far he is the story, the surprise of the tournament.
Queen a4 played by Aronian, but again, you would find it very difficult to believe that.
He's keeping it going. It's slightly unpleasant for black still. If he doesn't manage to simplify quickly, you have to be a little precise, but as you say, there is so little to work with left here for white that, of course, we do expect to draw, but it is certainly a totally risk-free situation for Levon Aronian, who will continue playing quite a bit. What odds do you give me for an Aronian win in this game?
I'd be very generous.
Very generous.
I'll give you like 4-1.
Nah, I don't think that's enough. I think this will most likely be drawn.
What do you want for action?
No, I'm not sure I want action. I'm just curious if there is any scenarios where white could win this.
The problem is, even if you win the pawn, you can get into this rook versus rook and 3 versus rook and 2, or even queen and 3 versus queen and 2, which you're never going to win. So, and if you win it with the pawn on e4, you can get blockade. I just can't see how you can win this with white. I mean, he would beat me, but that's not the point, right?
Right. No, I don't think he's gonna even try to win that pawn. The way to have a chance would be to activate the rook, but the problem there is always it runs into e3. If you, let's say you go rook b1 at a random moment, then black is always quick to play e3, get counterplay, simplify. So yeah, I also can't really imagine a
He
winning
played rook
plan.
e7.
Fair enough.
Can't be bad.
I guess he will just go rook e3 for starters to eliminate e3 action, and then maybe look at rook c3, rook b3, spot where he can activate. I don't know, it still feels slightly unpleasant for black, but of course there is not enough winning potential, most likely.
Yeah, you can win the pawn, but it's whether... I think you can win the pawn. I really, rook e3 and f3, I think if the right configuration, you can win it in a lot of lines, but it's just after that whether it's still winning. So no, I'm really confident Peter will draw this. In Peter we trust. We got a tweet from Megalovic. 13 bishop c5 in Caruana, like Vaganian Pedersen, Reykjavik 1990, with 13 bishop d8.
Ah,
Wow.
famous predecessors.
Rafael Vaganian, Rafa, very
Right.
famous,
Very strong player.
a great attacking player if I remember correctly as well, right?
I think of him more as a positional player, but
I've seen him
that
crush a
could
few
be
people.
argued about.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a very strong player in the 80s, 90s, and even after that. I've played him once or twice. I always had the feeling this guy really understands a lot of stuff about chess.
Well, he played against Pedersen, who is also a very strong player.
Grandmaster from Iceland, right?
Right, I believe so. And they got this position back in 1990. probably before Giri was even born. That would be interesting to know if it was just before, because Giri was born.
How is that close? Giri is 20.
Oh, Giri's 20. I keep on.
He was
getting.
born
I
in
mean,
94.
And Caruana is
Caruana Carlson, they might be born in 1990.
right. Exactly. That would be quite funny. So interesting stuff there. Thank you for the tweet.
Felix Kramer was chiming in. Famous people with Norwegian roots include Marilyn Monroe, Matt Groening, Simpsons creator. We love Matt Groening, or I do. Paris Hilton and Tom Waits. I don't think they're Norwegian though. Roots don't count. Carlsen is number one famous Norwegian according to Felix Kramer.
That is definitely up there.
He's in the mix.
You've got Norwegian roots, haven't you?
No, I don't. I got Swedish roots.
Yeah, but Swedish, Norwegian.
Very different. Don't bring up this topic with Scandinavians. I don't
I'm
think
going to
feel
get a
that
lot
way.
of hate mail.
Right.
Thanks for that. Oh, we've got HH has sent us his predictions, but I'm afraid to say, HH, your predictions, your guess is not going to count.
It's too late.
It's too late. We had to have all the predictions in before the first break. Clearly, it's a lot easier to predict what's happening after.
No, you're still very welcome to send them. You're just not eligible anymore for the great, exciting prize, which...
Probably the greatest prize.
When are you going to reveal it? It might be the worst prize in the history of prizes.
I don't think so. I think somebody's going to really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, somebody will. That's true.
I know if I was sent it, I would like to burn it immediately. And
you were sent it, technically,
I
right?
was sent it. I was, yeah. No, we were sent it. It was addressed to both of us.
Nice.
So there you go. But unfortunately, HH, next time maybe we should do some more prizes for these guys. Maybe we'll try and get some things together for our best tweeters in the next few rounds. We'll think about it. What about
we'll send you shopping. We'll give you a budget of like 7-8 euros, and we'll find something.
We'll find something for these guys. Chess enthusiast. Wow, this guy knows a lot of stuff. Reshevsky Vaganian, 1976, was probably Raphael's most famous victory, a true masterpiece. Thanks
I'll look it up. I have to admit I haven't seen that game.
I can't remember. Well, the game doesn't sound familiar. I might have been. Vaganian was a French player. I don't know if it was a Tarrasch, but certainly we'll have a look at that. Thank you for the tweets. And remember, you don't just have to talk to us about chess. We like to hear from you about all kinds of things. And
what do you want to talk about?
I do remember that game. He sacrificed his whole life.
Right now that, yeah.
I do.
It was a famous game. Couple piece sacrifices and he checkmated the guy.
Pretty sick game, right? Wow. Anywho, very nice stuff. What would I like to talk about, did you say?
What topics are on your mind today?
Well, we're very close to signing Diego Costa, a striker who used to plays for Atletico Madrid, Chelsea.
By we, you mean Chelsea?
Yeah, and we've been lacking a really good striker. We've had Fernando Torres, who's not been performing.
What happened to him? He hasn't been great ever since he went there, right?
But Diego Costa has really shown.
Spanish guy, Diego Costa?
Born in Brazil, naturalised in Spain, will play for Spain, I believe, in the World Cup. Scored a whole load of goals for probably the biggest revelation of recent football history, Atletico Madrid, who nearly won the Champions League.
They
won the league. What a season. And if we can steal him, great. And we might be getting Cesc Fabregas.
Oh, he's going back to the UK.
Back to
the UK. That's
apparently not happy at Barca. Went home. And now we would love Fabregas because, unfortunately, Frank Lampard, one of our most loyal servants, is leaving the club at the end.
He's leaving the club.
Yeah.
Is he retiring or is he going to play in Dubai or some nice place?
I'm not sure. I think he will continue playing, but he's realistically only got maybe 1 year or 2 years left. So I think, it's going to be sad to see.
What do you think is the age limit in chess? I'm turning 35 soon. I'm semi-retired, but we see a lot of strong players at age 40 and later, right? If we think of Anand, Gelfand, Ivanchuk. What do you think is the cutting point?
They are also 2750 players, so once you've had it, I don't know, for mere mortals like myself or you, Jan, I'd say it's time to pack your bags now. I think it's
I
time.
do agree. Done that, but seriously, like chess history, it has kind of shown us it's hard to improve very seriously at that level, but they keep their world-class level well into their 40s, or a lot of guys do, right?
Absolutely. There are some still very strong. I mean, look at Mickey Adams. I mean, there are lots of people who managed to do it.
What age did Kasparov retire? Like 42? He wasn't that old, right?
2005. He was recently 50. So, what would that make?
I think around 42 is correct.
Yeah, it wasn't that old, but of course by then he had won just about everything. So, talking about Kasparov, his last game was against
Veselin Topalov. He lost last round of Linares,
who is playing Magnus Carlsen. We've had some moves. C5, A5. He hit the queen again. All right, queen A2. He can repeat with rook A1, but maybe then
the queen could go somewhere else.
Right.
D5, E6. It's not forced to
no,
return.
absolutely. And probably he would go to D5, knowing Magnus Carlsen, and say, okay, I've got an extra pawn.
Right.
Deal with that. So instead, after queen A2, bishop E5.
Right. Nice move, because now bishop D7 you would take, and you would take on B7 with tempo, which looks quite good for white somehow. Win your pawn back, and after knight F6, let's say you go queen to D4, planning rook to A1. And I believe white's pieces are more active here, so he would probably be the one having most of the fun.
But Carlsen didn't do that. He just played rook D8.
He likes his extra pawn, doesn't want to give it back so easily. And I like the move queen to C1 now, sidestepping the pin and preparing to regroup our bishop to C4. I think bishop C4 could be a bit of a threat now.
Nice move. And if bishop E6?
Yeah, that's the question. Stopping this bishop C4 business. Weakens B7. I'm trying to think of a way to attack it, but there is no obvious one. So yeah, I don't see anything immediate. Maybe rook D1, planning rook D4 or whatnot, but yeah, you go rook AC8, I guess. Not so easy.
Tricky, right?
Yeah, very tricky.
Not easy to assess this one, we must say. Yeah.
No, I still feel Topalov should be doing fine with his space advantage and two bishops, but as you said, like the initiative can peter out very quickly, and then both sides will have chances. So we'll stay tuned. What could happen here?
Let's take some more tweets.
All right.
Let's go to Harish Nair. Rian, are you surprised with Siemens' solid performance versus the big guns?
Of course we are, or of course I am. I think we've praised Siemen plenty on the show. He has a background of being a world-class player. He was number 16 in the world in 1989, but hasn't been playing all that much for a long time. But yeah, I am surprised, and it's very, very impressive how he has been carrying himself and holding himself against this field. And I keep paying the price for being surprised, because I keep thinking, no, today Kramnik will get him, or today Karjakin will get him. And he keeps proving us wrong again. A very solid game today. I don't think he's in any trouble of losing this. And 2 out of 4 having even chances for a win, at least against Karjakin. Great result. Hats off to Siemen Acterstein.
I never doubted Siemen. Okay, maybe I doubted
You're
him.
Captain Hindsight.
Yeah, I am. On a serious note, having seen him play so much recently, played in the same tournaments as him, I've seen how well he's done, and he's really, something's happened. His chess has just improved so much.
And we got some action in their game.
Action.
He did play H3, natural enough move, creating a luft, and Kramnik took on D5.
Wow.
What's that about? Giving up the exchange? He must have a way to win it back. Rook D5, Rook D5, Rook D5. Now I think the trick he's gunning for is knight to E5. I believe that's his point.
Discovered attack.
with the idea of rook takes e5, bishop takes f3, which looks exciting, but it's really just exchanging more material. Queen takes f3, white has to go queen takes e5, black has to go queen takes e5, and some more pieces disappeared from the board, but it is still a very dead draw. Or now it is a very dead draw, I would say. Queen b7, for example, queen takes b2, queen takes a7, queen takes a3, show some exciting lines, and things disappear. Is there anything else that he could be up to? No, he did play knight e5. Seaman, of course, could think about if there's a way for him to stay and exchange up, but I don't think there is. Wherever he goes, he will be forced to lose it. Let's say rook d2, that would be bishop f3, gf, knight f3, tracking down that rook, while after rook d1 would be the opposite, knight f3, gf, bishop f3, and once again this rook would not survive much longer, neither would the white king. So curiously, after knight e5 the rook is kind of trapped. It doesn't have a square it can really go to, except for e5, which would be met by bishop takes f3, and I don't think you have to be much of a prophet to expect this to happen. Bishop f3, queen takes e5, queen b7 or queen a8, and the game should simplify towards a handshake pretty soon. Queen takes a7. Kramnik could play b5 if he wants to continue a little bit, but I believe white has at the very least the move queen to b8, and if queen takes a3, queen takes b5, while bishop a3 is not legal. So I would expect this to happen and the game to end in a draw.
Yes, in Seaman we do trust, indeed, especially with white against Kramnik. Caruana Giri has had a few moves. We had, after bishop g8, Caruana played e3, which again is a kind of typical waiting move to a certain extent, maybe thinking about d4. But now, Giri took. He liked taking now and playing knight d5. So
yeah, still think he's fine, but there is a lot of play left in the position. Like the black pawn on b7 could be weak. The white pawn on d3 could potentially be weak. White could think about d4 or e4 at the appropriate moment. Black could think about e4, f4. But I still would consider it to be roughly equal. What do you think?
yeah, I would have thought so. But there is play, as you said. This can go on for a while.
Absolutely.
It's very imbalanced. Pawn structure's imbalanced. All three results easily still possible here. Unlike in Ronyan Svidler, where
There's only two results
only
possible.
two results are possible.
Draw more likely than a white win. But Aronian will keep, moving around a little bit, and you have to be precise with black. You let your guard down 1 point, and all of a sudden you have a rook on c8 giving a nasty check. So I still think Peter has to be very careful here for a while.
Absolutely. Got a tweet here from John Stephen. I assume that's for me. Did you enjoy playing in the Scottish Championships last year? Will you be playing the Commonwealth Championships this year? I did actually, funnily enough, look at that this morning. And taking place in Glasgow in July. I looked at the entrance list and I thought I'd be playing the Indian Championships because the first 12 seeds are Indian.
Right. It's a very confusing thing for me with you British guys. So you played in the Scottish Championship, but you're not Scottish, right? Is that an open tournament, or how
I think
does it work?
that was an open tournament, yeah.
And the Commonwealth is open for everybody in the Commonwealth?
I assume so, yeah, I think that's the point. So, of course...
Where's it going to be, in India?
It's in Glasgow in Scotland.
In Glasgow?
Okay. It might as well be in India because if you looked at the entrance list, this is no exaggeration, the first 11 or 12 guys, including a good friend of mine, Tanya Sachdev, who I commentated with for the World Championships, she's going to be coming over. And I can't see any there are just at the moment there are no English or Scottish or United Kingdom based grandmasters. It's very strange. Last year, I believe Gawain Jones was the winner of the tournament, but who knows?
So you're going to play it?
Thinking about it, but I've got to get to Glasgow. They don't offer conditions, and
I read a book not only on Glasgow, but it covered a lot of Glasgow by beloved talk show host Craig Ferguson, who grew up in Glasgow, then became a talk show host in the US, and he made it sound like it's the worst place on earth. Which
interesting statistic recently came out about Glasgow is that it's the most unhealthy city in the UK.
Most unhealthy?
Yeah, as in most people get sick in Glasgow compared to any other city in the UK.
I've been to Glasgow and I thought it was perfectly alright.
Yeah,
nice city centre, quite alive.
Go outside the city centre and see what happens.
Well, you have that in many, many places, right?
No, Glasgow is pretty renowned for its, let's say, well, I don't want to speak badly.
Let's give a shout out to our weak viewers in Scotland.
Hi. I can say this because I'm from there.
You're from Glasgow?
My grandmother's Glaswegian, was Glaswegian. So I get away with it.
Glaswegian is a word. Wow,
Glaswegian.
that's a fancy way to call yourself.
Yeah.
Glaswegian.
Glaswegian, yeah. My grandmother was from Glasgow, so, you're allowed to do that, right? If you're from somewhere, you're allowed to insult the hell out of the place, right? Not that I have, really. I've just been saying stats, playing the BBC. All right, let's...
the most unhealthy place in the UK.
The funny thing is I've got a funny feeling. I actually read that today, and I'm just going to check before I get absolutely crucified on the forums by all of our... And I hope you are all watching, lovely people from Scotland, and I would love to see you all again. Where do you want to go? Yeah,
you're on a completely unrelated side. You're looking at school
I'm trying to make sure that what I'm saying, I just haven't dreamt this.
Right.
I will find it. Give me a second. Remember to tweet us, guys.
I'll go to chess game. In the meantime, which one? We have the predicted action in Achterstein-Kramnik. Queen takes e5. Achterstein will have a bit of a decision. There's some calculation involved in these lines with queen a8 or queen b7. Point being, after queen b2, queen a7, black has the move b5, and you have to be a little careful because it's hard to defend this pawn, and a4 would not be a good idea because of queen a1 check, king h2, and queen takes a4 or b takes a4. So you have to calculate this position, and I think the move queen to b8, threatening bishop c5, doesn't really threaten it because there's queen c1 check, but at some point it could come in handy that this bishop is pinned. Would simplify the position enough to guarantee a draw, but Seaman has to think about that, and he's not forced to go for it. He could also play it safe with a move like queen e2, let's say, when, the by far most likely result here is a draw, to put it mildly. Kayakin has been following along these lines. d5 has been played, c4, bishop b1, knight c5, bishop to d4. Very logical play by both sides. And I'm curious what Grisha will do here. I'm intrigued by the move bishop to h6. Sidestepping looks a bit odd, but it is pinning, winning by pinning. Maybe it's not very good. White can just go f4 and... What is the bishop really doing? You don't want to give it up here for this dude. This would be positional suicide to leave the white bishop in control on d4. But bishop h6 could be an interesting option. e5 could be another interesting option. Point after d takes e6. You take, could even think about bishop takes, but let's say knight takes. This looks totally fine for black, doesn't it?
I think I even prefer black here, if I'm honest.
I'm not sure. But yeah, black has to be fine. These dudes slightly weak. And yeah, doesn't look like black is in any trouble. Bishop g7, king g7, castles. White would dream of creating an attack with f4, f5, but I think black is well in time to prevent that. Rook ft8, queen e3, queen c5, for example. No problems whatsoever for black. So e5, an interesting move. White could just go back saying, haha, I provoked e5, you locked up your own bishop. But that loses a bit of time as well. And who knows, Grishuk, also a renowned King's Indian player, he could get aggressive playing f6, f5, or he could go for the typical Grunfeld plan b6 or b5 and then reroute his knight to d6. Could also be an idea. So I would expect him to play e5 here actually, and I would think that he is in pretty decent shape with black, so the theory battle would have been won by black, starting with the slightly, well, not offbeat, but not the main line, bishop to g4. Very interesting stuff by Alexander Grishuk. Doesn't play much, but when he does, he always has ideas up his sleeve, does he?
Amazing, the world number 3 doesn't play much, you know?
It's true though, right? I mean, he doesn't show up in that many tournaments. He became the world number 3 by doing well in the Russian League, a team competition, which the Russian League is very strong, but normally you don't see the top guys earning their ratings in team competition all that much.
He recently won a huge prize in poker online.
Ah, okay.
Did you know about this?
How he's doing.
It was in the Scoop, I think, on one of these poker sites. I think he won close to $100,000 in a night.
Nice.
Not bad. Playing his favourite Pot Limit Omaha game.
Right.
Let's go to, well, Topalov played Queen C1. So
They have this position.
they've got this position.
Bishop e6. I'm sure
Got to
Carlsen
play
was
Bishop
gonna
E6.
play Bishop e6.
No, you've got to play to stop Bishop C4. Otherwise, it gets a bit Angela Murky.
Angela Murky, is that what you say in the
Yeah.
UK?
Bit
Never heard that one.
No?
Nah.
Did you like it?
I do like it.
Is it Angela or Angela?
In German it's Angela.
Oh, beautiful. So strong.
Like an angel, right? Angela.
She does look like an angel.
But you have your own famous Angela, right? You have Angela Lansbury.
I don't know who that is.
Murder, She Wrote?
Oh, Murder, She Wrote. How do you know about Murder, She Wrote?
I was a big fan of Murder, She Wrote. She
You're
was
sick.
such a cunning detective,
Oh my
Angela
goodness.
Lansbury. It's a beautiful show. I used to be called Angela
Did you have a
Lansbury in high
childhood?
school. No, they used to call me Angela Lansbury in
Why?
high school because of my haircut.
You used to look like Angela Lansbury.
No, I picked
You-
up that joke on a random sitcom I was watching yesterday,
Oh, right.
Parks and Recreation. They said that, so it reminded me of Angela Lansbury.
Oh.
Murder, She Wrote. Great show.
I remember going to my grandmother's house and watching.
Right.
Well, I say watching, pretending to watch Murder She
Right.
Wrote. You've moved up in the world now. You watch all of these HBO series.
No, I still like the classics. Columbo, Murder,
You
She
like
Wrote.
Columbo? Oh my god!
I don't know, I haven't watched any for 20 years, but I did enjoy it. Peter Falk. He was a very cunning detective as well.
Oh my goodness!
But I did enjoy True Detective. Have you seen that show recently? It's a new
No,
HBO show.
but I heard it's
good,
very good,
Speaking
right?
of detectives, I thought it was fantastic. I was really addicted to that show. It's
Is
only
that-
8 episodes, so it's a quick view.
Is it
Great
on another
performance
series?
by Matthew McConaughey.
That's right, Matthew Mahoney. Actually, he's an actor who originally I was not a big fan of, predominantly because he did a load of rubbish films. But
I think we've covered this topic on the show, the McConaissance, because he did trash for like 10 years. He did all
and
these
then Sonny
horrible
became an
rom-coms.
actor, right?
And now he's like the best actor in the world. He won an Oscar for this Dallas Buyers Club.
Amazing
Was
film.
amazing in True Detective,
Yeah.
and he's really, really up there. So, yeah, there was the Vichy Sons winning the Candidates Tournament and the McConaissance. Those were the two biggest comebacks of the year
When's
for me.
the Gustafsons going to take place?
No need for a Sons, I'm right here.
I'll tell you what, me sans you would be.
Oh, now you're
Oh.
using your language skills.
well, yeah.
Parlez-vous le français?
Yeah, a bit. Un petit peu.
I don't
Yeah,
speak much
you-
French.
no.
We do speak Spanish.
Yeah, we
on
do.
the show. We should do a show in Spanish.
We
I
will
think
do a
that
show
would
in
be fun.
Spanish. Yeah, that would be good. Let's go.
Grishuk
You took on d4.
does not speak the Grunfeld as a native language. Took on d4. No, this might be a good move. Who knows? His point is c takes d, runs into cute trick. c3. Queen takes c3 and knight d3
Come
check.
to papa.
That one hurts.
Come to papa.
You can't even go queen takes d3, which will also lose, but it's not even legal. So this wins the queen.
Oof.
While if rook takes c3, we have our choice of how to pick up this rook. Knight d3 check, once again the cruelest one.
Oof.
Rook takes d3, rook c1.
Come to Papa.
Some nice tricks which no doubt Sergei Karyakin will spot and not go c takes d4. But queen takes d4 is not that tempting positionally. He would like to go c takes d and have all these huge pawns in the center. And here I'm curious, I think he could go knight d3 check before white castles. Bishop takes
Yeah,
c
interesting.
takes d. Queen takes d3. There is the annoying bishop b5, keeping the king in the center. Which you'd
Interesting.
be happy, right? Initiative
Oh, yeah.
and
I mean, I wouldn't even count that being a pawn down.
right.
I'd equate that to being a pawn up.
Yeah, it could very well be this position. King is in the center. C3 is kind of weak. A2 is weak. You have very simple play.
Queen
Let's say rook
d2, a move
C5,
like
rook
queen
C8.
a4 or rook c, not rook c4, but
Queen a4
queen
also a
a4.
good move.
No, I
yeah.
like queen a4.
Yeah, man.
You're
you're
threatening
tempting outcomes.
h6 or f6, and e4's dropping, and you put your. No, this is true. No, this is.
This looks nice for black. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think this should be allowed. So after c takes d, probably he would castle with white. But this should also be fine for black. Maybe bishop b5. Defending that guy. After c4, you can use the pin once again with queen a4. I think very concrete play by Grishuk. This bishop takes d4. Not the first move that comes to mind. But c takes d doesn't work because of c3. And queen takes d4. Knight d3 check also looks totally fine for black, if that's his idea. What's the Twitter sphere saying? QWERTY ABC, who has been very dedicated to tweeting, saying, one of the all-time great games from Vichy, where he crushed Aronian, GM Levon Aronian, Vichy Anand. We know that game, fantastic game. We are big fans of Vichy Anand on this show, but he's not in the tournament. He's
No, what's he doing? Is he
I think
watching
he's
the
in-
show?
He's playing a rapid tournament this weekend, actually not far from here in Rabat, I believe, in Morocco. They have a big rapid blitz event this weekend. I think Vichy Anand is there.
Absolutely.
You're still
I just had to.
still the viewers, and you're still reading up on Glasgow being the most unhealthy place.
According to the Guardian paper, and this is an official quote, Glasgow has got the worst life expectancy in the UK.
Wow. Is that because it's dangerous there or because it's unhealthy?
Just unhealthy. I think it's the drinking habits, and compared to the rest of the UK, it's not so good. Sorry
Craig
to hear.
Ferguson's book made it sound like everybody in Glasgow was an alcoholic, which once again I can't approve at all. Don't get us wrong. I think it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but he
I'm not
really,
su-
really
I'm not sure
overstated that.
I'm not sure it was. I'm not. Anyway,
Once again, hi to Scotland. We love you.
hello. Right, let's go to. Carlsen actually played Queen E6 after all we were
Wow.
saying. Didn't look like he played that
I
one.
was thinking about that, but it looked so passive, not getting the pieces out and bringing. That brings the queen back home, but it allows bishop c4 amongst other things.
What about just H3 here, hoping for bishop D7 to then play bishop C4?
Why do you need h3 for that?
Because I don't want him to play Queen G4. It's
okay.
just a waiting move. It's like, what are you doing? Maybe we'll go knight E8 and I'll look like a right idiot.
Well, 98 also doesn't look all that scary, does it? Maybe you just keep pushing your 8 pawn when you have the chance. But I'm not sure I like queen e6, I gotta tell you. It really looks passive.
What would you play here with white? What's the moves that come to mind?
Well, bishop c4 is the first move that comes to mind. h3, the move you mentioned, I like as well, just creating some luft, taking the c4 square as well. Rook d1 comes to mind. Bishop c7 could be thought about if you have some annoying moves there. Because bishop c7, for example, I think you already have a draw in pocket if you want that. I don't think Topalov wants that.
No.
f8 is the only square for the rook, and you can repeat. So that's another reason. It's a bit surprising Magnus Carlsen went for queen e6.
Maybe he's a bit uncomfortable here, Magnus. Maybe he's thinking
Maybe he's
a
trying to
draw.
provoke this.
a draw now would be all right.
I don't see Topalov going for a move repetition here at all. I don't think that's
That's not his style.
that's
is
what
it?
he does. No. But what happens after bishop c4, just out of curiosity? You want to go to g4 or f5 maybe?
Probably queen f5, right?
Just looks a bit passive. Even f3 now to activate to the max would be a very Topalovian way of playing, I would assume.
Yeah.
Difficult position for Magnus Carlsen. Yeah, h3, yeah, it's good. It's a fine move.
Just covering this square as well.
Well, rook d1, you really have a lot of
lot of
useful
different
moves.
moves,
And
yeah.
the problem with our black is still he can't develop so easily because you mentioned bishop d7 runs into bishop c4 at all times when
Yeah.
b7 is dropping. So yeah, it's not at all simple to get the pieces out.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we have had a move in Adjustine Kramnik, and Vladdy played g6.
Aktasana, he went for queen e2,
Yeah.
didn't go for this simplifying queen b7 operation,
Right.
just playing very, very solid chess. In case you wondered why not bishop c5 after queen e2 to exploit the pin, then white has, well, he can go b4, but I thought queen b5 was
Yeah.
the most clinical with a counter pin.
Right.
And yeah, nothing happening here at all.
Well, g6 is a de facto draw offer, isn't it, now? Because it doesn't...
The position is a de facto draw for there's just
yeah.
nothing going on.
They probably have to reach move 30 minimum, maybe even move 40. We'll double check. So he's going to play queen d2, and then he's going to play h5, and then he's going to play some bishop d4 or something.
Well, white. You could also go h4 and g3 if you want to
H4,
really dull it up.
And g3. Yeah.
No, this position will not be won by either side. I would be very, very
Holy
surprised.
moly!
What is going on?
Karyakin took with the pawn and is dead lost.
I'm not sure he's dead lost, but did he blunder
He
c3?
must have blundered c3. You wouldn't play c3, I'm sure.
Maybe what he blundered is the move knight d3 check here, which is a cool move.
Yeah,
Because
but
there's
you
the-
don't blunder that. You
I don't
don't.
know, you don't?
No, you don't.
It's not
blunder
that easy.
You even knight b3 wins, which is
Yeah, but I'm not sure that wins. Maybe he's going for this. Knight b3, rook
then you
b3,
take on
rook
b7.
c1 check, king e2,
you're right.
takes, and black has won the exchange as part of this forced operation.
You're right, but this doesn't
But
look
this
clear.
position does not look clear at all to
No.
me.
But knight d3 was played.
Knight d3, which
Maybe he
hasn't
did miss
played.
that. Yeah,
It could be that he missed this, which is really a nice move.
it's really cute.
The point which we mentioned earlier, rook takes d3, now you go rook c1 check, king to e2, queen takes d2, all forced, king takes d2, rook takes h1, and white has to spend an extra move on playing rook b3
After
here,
which you can just go b6.
when black will go b6. White has some compensation, but I don't
this
think it's
is-
enough. The
no.
rook will come to c8 and cause
No, he blundered.
havoc.
He blundered. He quite simply blundered here, and I really didn't expect the Karyak. Did we go punt a draw? We both punted a draw in this.
You know
today,
what? I'm once again well on my way to predict
Just on
0 out of 5
just
correctly.
insane.
I mean, I did predict a draw on this one. Win for Kramnik, a win for Magnus Carlsen, who's not doing great, a win for Levon Aronian, which is very drawish, a draw in Caruana Giri, which is unclear. Either side could win. I think predicting 0 out of 5 correctly 2 days in a row,
It's pretty
does
special,
that
right?
undermine my credibility a little bit?
Yes.
It is pretty shocking,
It is
right?
shocking.
How clueless I am. And I still think all the predictions made some amount of sense.
Yeah. No, amazing.
Hmm.
In the Aronian game, Queen G4 played, and he's probing. He's just stroking.
He's huffing and puffing.
He's stroking Peter Svidler.
He's
just
putting out feelers, Queen
he's just
G4.
touching his legs very slightly at the dinner table,
Right.
just showing his intentions. He
And that's
doesn't
what
want
you
to go
do
too
in such a
far.
position.
What? Touch him
knows
at
he
the dinner
can't-
table?
Yeah, that too. He knows he can't win
Have you
outright.
ever touched Levon Aronian at the dinner table?
I'm pretty sure I have, actually.
Okay.
I've had my share of
Wow.
touching the world number 2. Queen G4, Peter played Queen F5. No, but my point was, if you want to play for a win here, you can't go for a forced sequence or anything, it's just not there. So you keep like probing, going here and there, hoping your opponent gets in time trouble or lets his guard down for a little bit. And I've seen people win these positions. I don't think Peter Svidler will lose this. But
No.
it is typical strategy by Levon, going here, going there. Now he might go back or try Queen G3. Structure can't really be changed. So he'll keep trying quite a bit.
All right, interesting. Rook takes d3 was played by
Yeah,
Gayak.
forced rook c1 check
Rook
will be
C1.
played. Quite a cute idea to remember, really, this exploiting the pin.
That's all right.
And rook takes h1, rook b3, all this will happen b6. And yeah, I think
Great
Grishuk is
chances. And why are we
better.
betting against Grishuk? He's just won 2 in a row. He's clearly on form. The
Well,
first
he's black
game.
against Kayakin, predicting a draw. I don't think is betting against him. When's the last time Kayakin lost a white game? Okay, almost lost a white game last round against Simon Aktestein, in fairness, but he did hold that one.
But apart from that, all is good.
Yeah.
All is good in the hood. We've had a couple. Why don't we have a quick look at this, then to have another breather, because it's we're into our second hour here,
Yeah, which...
and we've got this position. We last saw it after knight d5. Caruana just kept his, connecting the rooks, controlling some dark squares. Looks normal.
Making moves.
Queen e7, attacking the pawn, and now just protecting it with knight e2, and rook ab8, his weak point. Anish decided to defend that. He probably felt he had to
I think
defend
that's
it anyway.
a fine move, prophylactically.
Yeah.
Could be a bit of a problem for black. He will have to use one of his rooks to keep an eye on the b7 pawn, while he would like to use them to double up in the d file or do something more active. Put one on e8 if he wants to start playing on the queen side. So I would slightly prefer white somehow. I don't think white is objectively better.
No.
But this situation on the queen side, I believe, favors him a little bit. He can put his queen on b2 and, try to make something happen. But objectively, I think it's still fine for white, and for black.
All right. Well, with that said, we're going to go for another very quick breather. We're about halfway through this round. All 5 games still underway. We'll probably see a draw pretty quickly between Ajestein and Kramnik. Aronian pressing for a while against Fiddler, but the other games, that being Topalov, Carlsen, Kayakin, Grishchuk and Caruana, all to play for. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. Be square.